Hello, everyone. So we're on YouTube. Yeah. So we're part two. You know, manifest the relationships that you want. So, you guys, if you haven't watched one, go back and watch that because we talked about what toxic relationships are. And I won't get into that because I want y'all to watch that one. But make sure you guys, one, like, subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Share it.
Press the alert so you can get the alert and and share this with someone. It may not be for you, but it may be for somebody that you know. If you guys don't know, again, I'm Sheila, Miss
I'm
Danielle.
Danielle.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just the founder or the creator of the Stopping Now program. What you do, Miss Danielle?
Small business entrepreneurship coach for
Hmm.
people entering into the business world.
Yes, yes. So we're gonna finish this conversation around manifesting the type of relationships we want. So we did part one and part two, which was discovery and strategy, right? So discovering what an unhealthy relationship is. I mean, we did discovering what an unhealthy relationship is. When we went into um, what do toxic relationships look like? I kind of want to take a minute though, because a lot came out in what toxic, and like I said in the show before, I don't really like the word toxic. I feel like it's overused and it's misappropriated. Like, everybody's not toxic,
Yeah.
people are not toxic. And remember, like, when you're using the word toxic or you're judging someone, your own 750 billion cells is hearing, trillion cells is hearing that language that you're associating with someone else. And I think that we talk about narcissism a lot. We talk about, oh, I got this narcissistic mate. And I'm not saying that those relationships are not difficult to be in. But instead of trying to change the narcissist, instead of trying to sit in the role of a victim to these individuals, I think we need to start looking at ourselves more, right? What about me is causing me to attract these type of individuals, right? What is it about me that's causing me to be engaged or associated with this type of individual? What about me that that what story is coming up that really allows me to keep involving myself with this type of individual? And I do want to take a break right here because I want to talk about strategy. And this is the strategy that we really have to use instead of playing victim. And I say that word with the most compassion, Miss Danielle. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm not judging you for playing victim because I know that that's the role that most of us have played in our life. So I'm not saying that that's a good or bad role, but if you want to get out of a victim state, then you have to stop pointing the finger out this way at the individual and start pointing the finger back at yourself,
My
right?
saying is don't point the finger if you can't do it in front of the mirror.
Yeah. And I think that this is so important and it's so critical to developing the type of relationships that you want. And know that you can develop those relationships or you can develop a different relationship with the same person. So, this is where I want to kind of in this strategy talk about a little bit about what do this mean. So, I had an emotionally unavailable mother. Okay. And she was just emotionally unavailable. She was, busy. She was young, and I found myself, Miss Danielle, in that relationship. What can I do to show her I'm a good daughter? What can I do to show her that I'm good? And then that swammed over to what can I do to show my family that I'm a good person? What can I do to show my friends that I'm a good friend, right?
Constantly trying to prove yourself when you
Yes.
shouldn't have to.
Yes, and I developed people pleasing tendencies,
Guilty.
right? Where it's like, what can I do to show them that it started with my mom, and I love my mom now. So, no comments about my mama because, I'm the only person that can talk about her. You have that kind of,
Look, same with me.
right. So, but I had this emotionally unavailable mom, and it made me feel like I wasn't good enough, right? Like, and then my mom had one daughter and three sons, and it appeared to me at a young age, Miss Danielle, that my mom had a different relationship with my brothers than she had with me. And I'm like, how am I the only girl? Like, in my mind, the idea was that I was the only girl, so I should be the one who's spoiled. I should be the one who's, kind of catered to or whatever. And it wasn't that. It was like my brothers were more catered to. My two younger brothers were, and it was like I was more ostracized. Okay. Now, how did that start to show up in my relationship? So I've developed this narrative at a very young age, right? Like, you need to do more and be more. Now, mind you, we didn't stay with my mom a lot. So we stayed with my grandparents. And as a consequence of we staying with my grandparents, or we stayed with my aunt. So we stayed from house to house. So as a consequence of us staying with my grandparents and with my aunt, it was this sense that, oh, well, this is not our home. We really need to act right, right? So I became a nurturer, right? So like I would get my grandmother's medicine together and like, well, how can I help you? And then I would, go with my grandfather and try to be like the good kid to my grandfather because look, I don't want to have no problems, you know, here because I know that you doing this for us because my mama don't want us, right?
Yeah.
And so growing up with that narrative about who I was, when I started to form relationships with individuals, it came from that same vessel, right? Who do I need to be? How can I get them to like me? What do I need to say? And if this was me, what I needed to be and who I needed to set, what I needed to be was like over here. You know what I
Ah,
mean?
two different.
It was like not even me. So I
Yeah.
was willing to give up on the talkative Sheila, the inquisitive Sheila, the Sheila that asks a lot of questions, and just kind of be like the whatever that Sheila was, right? To in some way incite or get them to, like me. Now, what ended up happening was I started doing hair at a very young age. So I started making good money. And so then the money now became my cloak. Like I could do hair and I made good money. So I knew that these were two things like people need their hair done and I paid all the bills. So it gave me a facade that I thought I was healed. And I realized I wasn't.
Wasn't you?
I wasn't. Now I was using money. Like how what do I to buy for you? Like now I'm paying all my mama bills and I'm taking care of my grandparents. I'm looking out for my family. Now I ain't never took care of a man, but it was this independent, like I'm an independent woman and I don't need you to take care of me type of thing, right? Because that was the narrative of me being feeling like I wanted to be good enough. And then Miss Danielle, had an idea.
What was that idea?
That I had an idea of what the perfect relationship was.
Ooh, this sounds like
Yeah,
an
because
interesting story.
and I was like, you know what? I want the person I'm gonna be with to have come from stark difference, right? Because if
Okay.
he came from a two-parent home and if he had an education, like he would know like the finer things in life and he would just be the perfect man for me, right? So that was the extent
That was
of
the
my
criteria.
that was the extent. He needed to be educated, he needed to come from a two-parent home, right? Because
That's a
that
very
was
that's a very shallow list.
very shallow. I was 19, 20 years old,
I
right?
got you. I
And
got
for
you.
me, I mean, as long as he wasn't a thug, because at that time, like literally, I'm hanging around, yeah,
Got
thugs.
you. Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm
Still
hanging
kicking
around.
these streets of
Now,
Saginaw.
now, let me say this: gentle thugs because they were good guys, right?
Yes. Oh, trust me, I
Lifestyle
got
wasn't
plenty.
conducive
I know
to,
plenty.
right,
They're
wasn't
actually
conducive
like
to,
pit bulls. They're actually sweethearts.
yeah, they are, you know. So all my friends were cool, like my guy friends was cool, like, but it was just like, man, I just didn't want that. Like I wanted stability. And to me, stability was two things. He had stability because he came from two-parent home, so he know how to treat, he know what family looked like, and he had a college degree, which means that he was employable.
How'd that work out for you?
Miss Danielle, I'm doing hair one day, and this guy walk into the shop. Bloop, 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 bloop. Since we in the after hours, I think I can go into this story. He walked into the shop, and you know, he would walk in periodically and, you know, speak or whatever, and everybody was like, ooh, 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 you
I'm about
know,
to say,
just
was
so
he
excited.
getting services or he just
Yeah,
popped
because
in?
it was a barber shop. So I did hair.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was a barber shop in the back. And so he would walk through and he had this like male, I thought he was a mailman because you know how the mailman would wear like the big,
Uniform.
yeah, I thought he was a mailman. So he would walk through and he would kind of speak or whatever. And, you know, and I didn't know him, you know. And one day, this is when we still had payphones, he walked out and he called back into the shop. And he was like, you know, say, Sheila, get the phone. So I get the phone. He's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, nothing. Like, who is this? You know, he tell me his name. I'm like, who? He like, yeah, this such and such. So this ended up being my kid's father. And he met that criteria. Came from a two-parent home. And he was college educated. He had just graduated from school, came home, you know, nice looking 6-something feet. You know what I mean? So in my mind,
Boom. Check,
boom,
check,
this
done.
this
Package
him.
it. If it fits,
Yeah.
it ships.
So
How'd
we
that work
had
out?
it. So at the time, I was dating someone, and the guy I was dating was off in the Navy, so he was in California, and he had just asked me to go and move out to California, and
Wow.
I was like, I ain't about to move from my family, you know. Well, so we kind of get more and more distant in our relationship because I really wasn't ready. Like I'm like, I can't move, right? I'm
Yeah.
19, 20 years old. I can't move across from Michigan to California, you know? And then he comes in and we're dating and, you know, and everything's good. And then he says to me, I want you to be the mother of my kids. Ding, 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 ding. Like, so not only do you come from a two-parent home, and you got a college degree, but you actually want me to have be the. So when I got pregnant, it was a no-brainer. We gonna have a relationship. We bought our house. We got together, like literally, and then everything started to disintegrate. Right, like the responsibility of being a father, the pressure that he was getting from his family to get married. I wasn't even trying to be married because listen, you already got the criteria. So you my husband, believe it or not. Right. But everything started to disintegrate. So the things that we talked about in the unhealthy relationship, hey, the things we talked about in, you know, part one, the stonewalling, the, you know, the arguments, like all of this stuff now is a part of, and I'm blindsided because I'm like, wait, you don't, you don't fit that. You know, that's not a part of what we do. You know what I mean? And I stayed, had another baby.
Look.
Well,
So
listen, so baby two came because we had broken up because I just couldn't do it no more. We broke up, but then I had a 2-year old, and I was like, I want my kids to be by the same guy. And so I went to him and I actually asked him, I was like, can we have another baby? Because I want my kids to be around the same age and I don't want to have two different baby daddies. And can we have a baby? So when we got pregnant with baby number 2, we wasn't even together. It was like designed, like I was ready for my second kid. He was still single. And so we got the second baby. And then, so I don't even get pregnant when I go to get pregnant. Actually, we was living in 2 different apartments. And I was living in the house. He was living in an apartment. And then his lease was up, and he was like, I'm ready to come back home. I'm sorry, whatever. And then I ended up getting pregnant when he came back home, whatever. But we never had the conversation. We didn't talk about the issues and nothing. He just came back home. And then we had my second son. And then it was just like, but the relationship still was just deteriorating. Like, it was like, and I started to feel less and less like me. Like, literally, like the Sheila that you see now, I was like many miles away from her, right? And I remember first meeting him, I'm like, okay, so for this type of guy, I need to be able to cook. So I try to cook every day. I need to be able to clean. And I was not domesticated at all, right? Why am I talking about this? Because when we're talking about strategies for a relationship, and I gave that stuff in part one of it, like what you need to write down, I think we really do need to go a little deeper with what we feel like our idea is, what we're ready for, and what that really means. And for me, just those two criteria was just.
So I got to piggyback because mine was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, with my first son's father, I had never wanted to be married. I had never wanted kids. That was not something I was planning on intentionally manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
We fell into this thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked them. It was nice. It was like, okay, this is cool. And then I got pregnant, and that's when the light bulb went off. And it was like, whoa, because I was not looking for a future father of my children. And
Oh.
then I had to put, I'm over here pregnant. I had to put the father of my children glasses on, and I started paying attention. And it was like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. This ain't gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so funny that you said that, because I remember having that thought. I almost did the same thing, because it was like I didn't want to have an only child,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not want to have more than one baby daddy, and I considered that, but I could not overlook.
So let me say this. My kid's father was a good kid's father. Like
Yeah, same with mine.
and this is the thing where I have to say, like,
First
a
one.
good man and a good father is two different things. Like, I feel like he had still to mature into a good mate. And I think that
Totally.
the father thing, him being a good father, was an innate thing. Like, these are my kids, I'm gonna take care of them, right? So he was always a provider, still is a provider. Like, he's definitely present and there. It was just the mate part. Like, I think he and at that time, I don't even think it was me he was running away from. I think it was the idea of what he thought I wanted. Because I mean, I ain't never asked him for his hand in marriage. Maybe I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, but that wasn't even a life I had grew up in. So I wasn't like, oh, we need to get
You didn't
married.
even know what it looked like.
My only requirement was, if you take me from my house, we buy in a house, right? We're not going to rent. That was my only criteria. Like, we gonna buy our first house. Like, I'm not renting anything. And that's what he did. So we bought our first house and, moved in with my oldest son. And then, like I said, got pregnant with my second son. And then we had our third son. And by the time we got to the third son, I knew it was like, you know, this is not going anywhere. And so I'm having this conversation with the audience because I knew, and it would be like, well, why would you still bring kids into the world knowing that situation? Was I hopeful that he would change?
You know you would.
I don't know if I was hopeful that he was changed, but I do know I was numb at that point. You know what I mean? Like, it was literally like,
It was like flatline. You wasn't going up, you wasn't going
I
down.
was going down. It was just like, I'm pregnant again. You know what I mean? We've done this twice. We know what to do. But just that feeling of, and then I didn't have the thoughts like, oh, I'm gonna have 3 kids and ain't nobody gonna want me. Like, that wasn't something that got to me. I did really want the family though. I wanted the family, and
You
so for
fall in
me,
love with the idea.
it was definitely the idea. And so
That was
under this
mine.
strategy conversation, I definitely I want our audience to think about, am I in love with the idea of what we can be? I am in love with the idea of who I think he can become, right?
Ooh, that part.
And is this realistic for me right now? What do I really want? And so I want to share the second story because I told one before, but I was listening to the Shade Room. She's the CEO and founder of the Shade Room, and she was on the show Hello Future Wifey. And I just did that show Hello Future Husband with Jessica. And so she was on there with Lateris, and she said she had a dream. And in her dream she had this beautiful wedding. And she had like the gown and like the everything was beautiful or whatever. And she said she looked over, and when she looked over, her friend was like, "Where's your husband?" And she realized there was no husband in the dream. It was just like this big, beautiful wedding,
Hmm.
and there was no husband. And so she said she seen a guy, and she was like, "Oh, you gonna be my husband?" So she just kind of pulled a random guy. Now this is in her dream. She kind of pulled a random guy
Yeah.
and was like, "You gonna be my husband or whatever." And so he was like, "Well, I ain't even dressed for the wedding. I ain't even done nothing." And she said she woke up, and when she woke up, she realized that she was more focused on the wedding than the man.
Man, what? You
That
better.
she had that she literally wasn't thinking about what kind of husband she wanted. She was more focused on what type of wedding she wanted, and he was just a fill-in. How many women are just focused on
Too many.
the wedding or
Too
the
many.
two-parent home? I mean, the two-parent or the fence or buying the
The
house.
white picket fence, the
Yeah,
visual. I would say the
visual.
visual,
Yeah. And
and
not the
not the work that
detail.
goes into painting,
Yes.
because it's a painting. It takes
Yeah.
time.
And it takes time to develop. And like I said in part one, who do you need to be? Who do you want? And who do you think he wants? Right? And this work, this requires you to sit and think. And sometimes we don't want to sit and think.
Look,
Because honestly, we don't know.
I would challenge and say, if you couldn't have a wedding, would you marry this person?
And I
Like,
think
still get married, but if you could not have a wedding, because
that's
that's a trigger for me. That drives me crazy. People will run themselves into the ground for a
mm-hmm.
wedding.
Yeah. Now, and again, this is for the audience to start thinking like, man, is it the wedding I want? You know what I mean?
Or the
Is it
ring, the
or the ring
visuals.
I
Are
want?
you only
Is it
worried
the
about the
nail
visual?
now that I want, right?
Are you only
Or
worried about
is
the
it this
Instagram
money,
posts and the
right?
Facebook
Or
posts?
yeah, or am
How
I
many
in love with
likes?
him? Am I in love with him? Can we just sit around and like? So this is what strategy is about. Strategy is about looking at the different things, looking at the why, right? Why do I want this relationship? What is it, what is it that I want about this relationship? And it's like, and I don't even want to say realistic, but is this something, you know what I mean? That, like I
That
said,
you know,
and again, mind you, the 20-year-old and the 43-year-old, of course, there's been so many experiences between, in the last 23 years. And I'm not gonna go back and say I wish I would have changed that, but I can recognize it at that time. Oh, your criteria was very low.
shallow.
You know what I mean? Very it, but it was based on lack.
Yes.
I lacked an educational background, in my family. So that was something that I was gonna be the first graduate. So that was something of value, but it was from lack. And I also lacked stability, like didn't have not having a mom and father. And so that was a value to me. But the intention was from lack because I didn't have it. And I felt like everything that had happened to me in my life was a consequence of these two things. They weren't educated and they weren't together. And what I realized was that two-parent families got issues, just like single parent
Amen.
families. Everybody got issues, and we all have stuff we need to go through and grow through, right? And so when we start talking about implementation now, what does that look like? Like, what should a person have when we start thinking about our relationships? What does a healthy relationship look like? Okay.
Good story.
What does a healthy relationship look like? Well, first, love.
Real love.
Right? Now, in the beginning, of course, you're probably not gonna have love, right?
Hope
But
not.
I like you.
I like you.
I like you.
Genuinely.
Yes,
And you,
like
you,
me.
no
Yeah,
makeup, just
yeah,
woke up,
yeah, yeah. I
even
thought
when you
you
got
were going to say, and you like me, because I think that's the second part. And you like
like
me. Because we
me
can love some people,
from
but
a
we
distance.
don't,
Amen.
right? So I feel like liking is so important. But, in a healthy relationship, the potential for love, having a love there and a likeness for an individual is just so important. And again, my definition of love, if you guys haven't watched it, the self-care, loving yourself, to me, love is a mindset. So once I got this mindset of love for you, then you get all the attributes that come with that, right? And remember, so one of the things we talked about in the first show is that we're in relationship with everything, right? So we're in relationship with our car and this also applies to those things, right? Like the clothes you put on, right? Like the furniture you buy, right?
Man, that
Like
part.
the business you're going into. Like, have a love relationship with the car you drive. Like, just don't get a car because, oh, I just need a ride, because you're
Then you're
gonna
gonna be
end
mad
up,
every time you get it.
yeah,
Buying a house.
yeah, buying a house. Just don't buy a house because it's the first house that come on the market. If you go in that house and that house don't speak to you, wait for your house.
Wait for your house.
Because when you make that purchase, you're gonna be like, man, I wish it had this and I wish it had this. And you're going to start not liking it and not loving it. So this
Friends.
love thing applies to all your relationships. Like the clothes you buy. I
Yes.
just need a pair of pants I'm around in here. No, like how they feel on you. Because if you don't, then they're going to stay in the closet. They may
Hello.
look good on your friend or on, somebody else. They just don't look good on you. And when you don't like your clothes, they don't feel good, you know? So I'm like, apply this love thing
For
to
everything.
everything, you know?
Because I call my version is intention. What's your intention?
Mm-hmm.
What's your intention for buying this thing? Do you want to keep this thing? What's your intention with this person? Do you want to keep this person?
Yeah. Affection. This is number 2. And I feel like affection is such a big part of relationships, right? They kiss, they hug, they hold hands, they enjoy cuddling, right? Like, having affection or some physical touch is so
Or
important to healthy relationships.
what I used once I really started getting serious and doing a lot of self work, I would make the other person do the languages test if
The
they were
love
not
language.
aware of their love languages, because I know I have a very specific love language that most people aren't used. Well, I don't want to say most people aren't used to. It's just I want to make sure this is my love language.
Yeah,
What is yours, to make
yeah,
sure there's not a dis. And I mean, I would do that
yeah,
within the first month just to make
yeah,
sure we're on the same page
yeah.
on
Now,
how this is how I express my affection.
right. Now, how do we express affection in these other areas? And to me, it's the physical part. So I physically want to be here, right? So in my friendships, we hug, we touch, like, hey, my family, we hug and touch. Now, how do I show affection in my business? Like, I physically want to be there, right? Like, I have an affection for this. Like, I'm in everything. Like, this, how the aesthetics is showing up. There is this relationship that I have that I physically want to show up. I'm physically here. I'm physically engaged with my business. You know what I mean? if that's getting me
I like
coaches, if that's, you know what I mean, if that's just walking through my building and construction. And I know when I'm not being affectionate with my building, when it's been weeks and I ain't been up there because I'm just like, and I'm like, oh, let me go love on my building, right?
that.
Because they got right now we're doing some construction on the electrical stuff, and it's just like, oh, let me go in here, you know what I mean, let me just go sit at my desk or whatever, right? But it's the affection, like it's the
I
physical.
have that same thing about my house.
Yeah, yeah, with
It's
your
my
house.
first, it's my first home, and I mean, I truly love my house, and
Yeah,
it's like I'll take time. It's like my house needs some love,
yeah, some
some love on
affection,
it.
right? 3, trust. This is big. you know I don't know if trust and love is the same thing, Miss
It's
Danielle.
not. It's not. It's
But I
completely different.
always say trust is so important because it's the investment, you know? And now let me give this nuance. And I don't think that everybody's going to agree with me with this,
Ooh.
but I'm not, I don't think that people have issues with trusting other people. I think people have issues with trusting themselves in the presence of other people, right?
That part.
And so I'll always hear people say, well, I just want to trust what he gonna say. And it's like, but even if he lied, do you trust that when it comes up for you, like he lying, can you believe that? Right? Because whether he lying or telling the truth, intuitively, you know what I mean? You're getting the truth, right? The truth is coming up for you. That is where trust lies. It's really a personal investment in you. So no matter really what's going on the outside of you, like, is can I trust that no matter what goes on the outside of me, that I'm going to stay in alignment with my values, right? That I'm going to stay in alignment with who I am, and that this person doesn't have enough influence over me to make me do something that I otherwise wouldn't do. And I
I like
think
that.
that instead of us looking at it like that, we tend to, I need you to be regal and trustworthy so I don't have to do that work inside of me. Does that make sense?
No, I love that breakdown because I've that's something that I've done because it's about you,
Yeah,
and it's you have to take ownership. You are in charge of yourself
yeah,
because this is exactly what you said. People are people,
yes,
good or bad,
yes,
and things happen,
yeah,
and to expect somebody's never gonna lie to you, or it's more to, the trust is more, I don't know, it's deeper than that. But so I don't like when people tag it to just like, oh, he lied to me. We
yeah,
all lie. let's
yeah,
let's let's be 1,000%, we all
yeah,
lie. It's
yeah.
about, like you said, is this lie gonna take you out of yourself?
Right, right. Is
If you
me accepting this lie. So I think about like the extreme cheating. You don't want him to cheat because you don't want to have to deal with if you're going to step out your value or your belief about what you would do if he cheated, right?
that part.
So it's like, don't cheat on me so I don't have to make that decision, or if I'm going to stay or if I'm going to go, right? So I need the trust that you're not going to cheat. And the thing about it is, whether he cheats or not, if you don't want to be with a cheater, don't be with him. If you do want to be with a cheater, trust that that's what you want to be. Trust whatever is coming up for you. If it's your love for him, if it's your whatever for the relationship, trust that above other people's opinions about why you should stay and why you should go. And that's the internal work. And I think we don't really
And that's
think
why you
about
keep people
trust
out your
as a
business.
personal investment. Huh?
I said, and that's why you keep people out your business.
And I think that's what, and to add to that, I think that we don't do the internal work to really know how we're going to feel and what we're going to feel. And it's like, I trust myself. I trust that when it's time for this relationship to dissolve, I'm knowing it that it's dissolving. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I'm trusting that, oh yeah, we moving apart from each
it's a
other. And
wrap.
I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. You know what I mean? Or I'm trusting that um I don't know, whatever it is, like this thing that I'm doing it. I'm trusting that I can stand in my truth. I'm
Yeah, I like
trusting
that.
that, you know what I mean? I'm trusting that, you know, I'm gonna be okay when I stand in my truth, and it make you mad, and maybe you walk away, right? And I'm still gonna be okay. And
Yeah.
so trust starts on the inside, but I think that we see trust as this
Outward.
exchange, but this outward exchange between people. Like, well, I need to be able to trust, you, and it's like, yeah, but the person you really need to trust is you, right? Because no matter what I do, right, you still gonna have to lean on your own decision about what I did, right?
Yep.
So I think that's huge. And I think we can go deeper into trust, because even if you think about trust, when it's used in banks, it's an investment, right? It's like an investment of space where you're putting the stuff in, and it's adding value, adding value. And if we did that for ourselves, we would add worth and value to ourselves. The more we align with our truth, the more value we become to ourselves, the more worthy we feel, and then the more that can be expressed in our relationships. And remember, we're talking about manifesting. So we're taking something from the non-seen, right, to the seen. And if you want to have trusting relationships with other people, then you have to start off by having a trusting relationship with you, an affection relationship with you, and a loving relationship with you. Communication.
It's my favorite one.
This is huge. And know that 90% of communication is even nonverbal, one. So how we communicate is big. And
How?
And the biggest thing in communication, again, if we're talking about manifesting, what kind of one communication you're having with yourself, meaning what are you allowing yourself to say? I know a lot of people that just like, I just don't feel comfortable with talking. I just don't know how he's going to respond when I say that. And it's just like,
How do you know
well,
if you never do it?
if you don't do it, and it's so challenging for them to, but is he going to hit? And then I'm like, so are you communicating to get a result? Are you communicating to be proficient in how you feel?
What is your
Right?
intention?
Yeah. And so many of us, Miss Danielle, communicate to get something. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to get you to come over here, and I need to figure out how to communicate that. And that's not the fullness of communication, because that is a very controlling way of communicating. Communicating is being open to asking a question or saying a statement and giving that person the space to receive it and respond in their authenticity. And then now we dialogue about why they said no, why that can't happen. We may even conflict, but we find some resolve to ultimately get the result, right? And so communication is just really important when we
Yes.
start thinking about implementing, strategies
And
for it.
remember, communication, listening is a part of communication. You can't be
Listen,
just talking and not listening.
yeah, I heard even somebody took it a step further. It was like communication is just not about listening; it's about interpretation.
It's three layers.
Yeah, it's like, because I can hear you, but am I interpreting what you
Am
say?
I understanding you? Am I
Am I understanding
comprehending you?
you and what you're saying? Because
It's just like a proficiency test. They ask you questions to make sure
yeah,
you
you understand.
understood what was communicated.
Because remember, it's always a third party in every communication. So when you're talking to a person, you have a voice in your head that's going on, and they have a voice in their head. So they got a third party in this conversation, and you got a
There's a
third
lot more
party in this
people in that conversation than you
conversation
realize.
than you realize. Number 5 is friendship. Again, making sure that there's some friendship. We can talk about things. We can hang out. There is some kind of
Connection,
connection,
relatability,
relatability, right? That's just not all sex,
that
right?
part.
In business or in relationships, that there's a friendship, that the title of the relationship is not defining the quality of the relationship. So I say, like in my friendships, right? Like, because we're friendly. We are friendly in our friendships. It ain't because we've been cool for 23 years and that's what make you my friend, but we never talk. Like, no, we've been cool for 23 years and we're friendly with each other. You
Yes.
know what I mean? in your job, I'm not just here or showing up because I have to be here. I'm friendly in this job. Like the way I show up, it's a
Mutual
mutual.
exchange.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
So
way I see it. Because
yeah,
if it's only one sided, it's probably not a friend.
he's so funny. it, it, and that is in business too. I want to talk about money part of it.
Because I was about to say, you brought up sex, but on the other side is money. If somebody
Yeah,
only wants you for money, if
yeah,
they
for
only want
money
to
and
do
all of that.
business with
Yeah. So they need
money.
to, yeah. So even in our business exchanges, somebody just there to, because they feel like you're valuable and now they're just kind of taking and taking, and there's no friendship established where they care just as much about you as you care about them. That has nothing to do with love. It's just the friendship of us, right? Bonding.
Quality time.
This is important. Bonding is so important to healthy relationships. Bonding is like we're sitting watching or playing checkers and having a conversation, right? We're taking a 3 hour drive up north or, to visit. There's bonding happening. We are actually building like a decorating back
Connections.
room, right? We're moving the furniture around together. Like we're doing activities together that requires us together to make this activity happen, right?
And you expose different levels of yourself
Yeah,
during these events
yeah,
that you may not have previously explored.
yeah, yeah. And we need this in all of our relationships. I think in our parental relationships, we need to bond with our kids and find time to bond. In our friendships, we need to bond. Listen, as an entrepreneur, you need to bond with your product or your service. How does that look like you're actually doing activities within that service that doesn't have anything to do with the service or the deliverables? It has everything to do with the relationship that you have with that. So it may be asking yourself some questions, going back over your what is that called? Your business plan, like
Oh yeah.
looking at different strategies and things like that. Like uh, getting up and doing on the blackboard or whatever, but you're bonding with the business in a very integral way, right? That's really conducive to the relationship that you have with the business because you're investing your time in these type of things. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Commitment
Commitment. An agreement.
and agreement.
Mutual
Yeah.
agreement.
And understanding what you're committed to, right? I think that was one thing in my relationship. My kid's father was committed to being a father. I don't know if he was committed to being a mate. He had not made that commitment.
Yeah.
But there was a responsibility that he felt in our relationship
To do
because I was
mate
his mother, right? And we lived together.
mate-ish things.
Yeah, yeah. So we live together. We have the same bank accounts. We got these kids. There was a level of commitment there, but I don't think it was committed to the fullness of our relationship. I think that those were the things that he felt responsible to do,
Okay.
and then he was committed to the kids,
Out of
right?
duty.
Yeah, because he was a type like, when we did get into the conversation, it was like, well, I believe that commitment is the fullness, like before God, and I was like, what? Wait, so you ain't fully committed, right? So having a conversation about what
You gotta talk to
commitment
people,
is,
man.
you know what I mean? You got to communicate because I definitely feel like we share the same bank accounts. We live in the same house. We live in the same bedroom. We got the same kids. Like, I, to me, that was the
He said,
definition
I
of
don't see
commitment.
no rings on these fingers.
Right, hey, I'm doing all of this, but I ain't got no ring on it, so I ain't fully committed to this process. That like,
You
and
see?
that was like, what? And it's so many individuals that's in relationship, and that didn't make him a bad person. I think that's what he knew at the time, and that's what I knew at the time. And I think that there are relationships now where it's like the same thing, like, oh yeah, I'm doing this stuff, but I'm not committed to like you. Like the bills got to be paid, the groceries got to be
Yeah.
bought. I'm doing it. I'm being responsible, but I'm not committed. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Every healthy relationship has a
Gotta-
disagreement.
It's a balance.
Yeah. So we definitely want to make sure that we understand that it's okay to disagree. I think that a lot of us have these thoughts like we need to agree on everything, and if we get into it, then I'm packing my stuff up and leave. Oh, I think I had a season of that in my life where it was just like, oh, we got into it, I'm packing up. You know what I
How do
mean?
you how do you feel about the 80-20? Are you familiar?
I'm not familiar.
What? So I this has been one of my guiding forces, the 80-20 rule. And I'll summarize it. I'm sure there's different versions, but you should be aligned with about 80%, but there's going to be 20% of this person that you probably not going to like. That's never going to change. And are you willing to accept that 20%? And if something in that 20%, if it's too much, then you probably don't need to do it. Just like perfect example, one of mine was I really didn't want somebody that smoked, but it wasn't a make or break. My husband smokes. That's his 20%. So, but it was an okay 20%. Now, if you had somebody that was a bad father, no, that's you start bleeding outside of that 20%, and that's a little too much, So,
and I guess that's what I was gonna say. I think for me, it's the values. Like as long as the 80% that we hold together is in our top 10 values, like
yes,
I'm good, right?
exactly.
Like yeah, like the 20%, as long as it ain't in our top 10 values or in my top, as long as it don't affect my top 5 values, definitely I'm gonna stretch it to 10. Like if it's not out of alignment with that, then I'm good. And guess what? Those top 10 don't have to be this is your one, this is your one, but I do think we should have shared values in those top 10. So if family is a number one for me, then I think it should be in your top 5. You know what I mean?
I like that. Yes,
You
I
know,
would
like
agree.
you have to have value family. Like you can't not have a value family as a part of your dynamic and we together. Like it's just not gonna work.
And it's
So I think
important.
that the way I think about it is more around values. What do you value and what do they value? And this is something that didn't even come up on here, but I'm glad like in our disagreements, I think we can stay together because we have the same values.
And I think knowing what you disagree on is important early, because can you handle that?
Yeah.
Because if
Mhm.
it's something that's so volatile, then this probably won't be sustainable. But this is just a mild disagreement. He don't like ketchup. I love ketchup. If it's something low tier. But if it's I don't like the way he's disciplining my children.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, or how we see discipline.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Change and flexibility. This is big.
Only thing constant is
People
change.
who are able to change and be flexible, and you know, and sometimes people just not able to be flexible and change. This is how we've been doing it like this. We gonna keep doing it like this. What's wrong? It ain't broken.
Does not make them a
Like,
bad person.
well, you know what? Every 10 years, every cell in my body has literally
Change.
reshaped and reformed itself. Like everything has changed. So you thinking if my body is sophisticated enough to know that it has to shed the old and change, that we can't have this level of flexibility in my life, you know. And I'm saying not that we're changing and being flexible all the time, but we need this, right? And we talked about this fun, having fun, right? Connecting together, being adventurous, going places, laughing, singing, dancing, or whatever fun is for you. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's reading a book and
laying in the bed watching Netflix.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And so these are strategies to truly help in ways that you can implement. I'm sorry, having a healthy relationship.
Yes, reflect on these and see what do these mean to you.
Yeah.
Like you said, what is fun to you? What is disagreement to you? What is flexibility look like? Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, if you want more information about implementing these tools and strategies, contact us at info@shapeofsolutions.org. You can always DM us at our, social media handles because again, implementation stage is the testing stage, and it's going to look different for each person. Love is going to look different. The way you communicate is going to look different. What kind of friendships, bonding, commitment, right? But how you do one thing is how you do everything. So we don't want to just work on changing one of our relationships in our life. We really want to work on our primary relationship, changing the relationship with us, right?
Start with you first.
So yeah, and then as we start to change with us, then we start to change on the outside. If you guys have a problem with that, remember to join the Stop It Now movement. That's at
The movement.
www.stopitnowsolutions.com. If you're having problems with anything that's getting in the way, that's preventing you from being able to implement these things, preventing you from being able to, have the life you desire, deserve, and achieve your goals, or just having a healthy relationship, join that workshop. We do those on every Mondays and Thursdays. I really enjoyed this conversation, Miss Danielle, and I thank you for investing your time and helping me, or being patient with me while I told that story in the beginning, because I think that people see the woman now and just feel like I just showed up, and it's like, no, I probably made every mistake that every woman has made, but I use wisdom, right? And I learned from those things, and I realized that the only relationship that I could work on was the relationship with myself. And as I started to work on the relationship with myself, I started to manifest a
Yes.
different relationship with my kid's father. When I say the same people, me and my kid's father is duper duper cool, super duper cool. One day I tell that story. The relationship with my mom has changed, right? I said she's emotionally available. She's still emotionally unavailable, but I have a different relationship with
Yes.
her.
Because
The
you have a
relationship with
different.
my dad, the relationship with my money, the relationship with my clothes, the relationship with my house. And these relationships are constantly evolving, right?
Yes.
And
That
they,
part. And it's
yeah,
okay.
it's
Things
okay.
change.
And if you want to hear more about my relationships, make sure you tune in to the What Will My Daddy Say show that airs on Thursdays at uh 9 o'clock on this same network, right? And where I talk about me dating and the joys of dating for me. I was talking to Danielle about that earlier. Like, I don't have the stresses of different
Oh,
things. I'm like got 90 percenters, and we have good times
she
together,
is
and
living her best life, and I'm glad to be out the game.
yeah,
Have
and
fun, Sheila.
yes, yes, but it is, and I'm really doing that because I do want to see all aspects of me, and not be so rushed to, oh, this my husband, right? Or, oh, this is this. I'm just letting it kind of walk itself out. Now walk it out. Now walk it out. Now if one of them end up at the end with me, guess what? That's just what it's gonna be. Hey, you guys, I thank you. I'm Sheila again. Make sure you join that Stop It Now movement. If you haven't already, join our 30-day Manifest the Life You Want challenge. That's at www.elevateherchallenge.com. Follow us. Make sure you follow us here. Subscribe, hit that alert button. Then you can also follow us at all our social media handles at I Am Shaping Solutions and at Elevating Life.
Yeah, yeah.
We want to hear from you, so make sure you comment, make sure you like, and make sure you share. We're looking forward to speaking with you guys next week. Thank you guys for part 2. Love you guys. Later.